All right, I want to officially welcome everybody to our second in a four-part series. This is the ELPS and TELPAS, best practices for incorporating language modalities across the curriculum and classroom. Last week, if you were with me, we focused on listening, and today for part two, we are going to focus on speaking. And this is part of my spring 2021 series on language acquisition and vocabulary development, okay? So if you are with me for the first time or haven't seen one of my sessions before, my name is Gabriel Verone. I am an instructional content coach at Education Service Center Region 11, been in this current position been at the Service Center for about a year and a half, and with the English language support team since September of 2020. This is my beautiful family. I've got a 13-year-old son, Malachi, an 8-year-old son, Zachary. My wife, April, is a critical care nurse. I'm a big nerd and comic fan, so love some Marvel and DC. And I work part-time with preteens at South Cliff Church in Fort Worth. All right, our objectives for today, which align with the T-Test goals you see listed at the bottom of your screen, we will explore the connections between the ELPS and TELPAS and the strategies to implement the ELPS in our classrooms. And I'm pretty sure you all know, but in case you're wondering, the ELPS are the English Language Proficiency Standards. We'll delve a little more into what those are and what those do in just a moment. And secondly, we are going to explore and practice a variety of strategies for promoting oral language fluency. And those strategies include sentence stems, planned interactions such as turn and talks, and the teach back. So most of these strategies are probably not going to be new to you, but hopefully we will look at them through the lens of promoting both content literacy and oracy or oral fluency. All right. Now, TEA has given us the English Language Proficiency Standards. In just a moment, I'm going to drop those in the chat so you can have a digital version. And what TEA says is that classroom instruction that effectively integrates second language acquisition with quality content area instruction ensures that ELLs acquire both social and academic language proficiency, that they learn the knowledge and skills in the TEKS, and reach their full academic potential. And so what we really want to think about is, what do I need my kids to know? And what specific language strategies am I going to use to promote both knowledge of academic language and academic content? All right. So if you think about creating a content TEK and a language objective with the ELPS, you're basically making a learning solution. You're taking the what and the how, and you're pouring them together. Okay. All right. So I thought I saw a new comment in the chat, but when I opened it, that was not true. All right. Now, as I mentioned last time we were together, right, the TEKS are to the STAR as the ELPS are to the TELPAS, right? Our academic standards, as elucidated in the Texas Essential Knowledge and Skill, are tested at the end of the year on the STAR test, and the English Language Proficiency Standard are tested and measured through the TELPAS test, okay? And again, TELPAS measures 4 individual modalities of language, right? So for reading, students in grades 2 and up take an online reading test to measure their reading ability in English. Students in K1 are rated holistically using a rubric, okay? In listening, students take an online test where they listen to tasks and complete a series of directions or answer questions. For writing, as you know, students submit English writing samples that are rated by campus staff based on a rubric, right? We do our annual training on that, right? We have to pass a calibration, and then that calibration lasts for a determined period of time before you have to calibrate again. And your campus has probably already talked to you about doing that because the window to collect writing samples opens very soon. And then lastly, but obviously not least, for speaking, right? You'd think this would be one of the easier tasks because speaking is a generally easier modality of language than reading or writing. But they take an online test where they answer questions using a microphone to record speaking in English. One of the positive things I think about the online learning in the pandemic is that students are getting used to using digital tools, because what we have found across the state is that speaking tends to be really low because the system where students record themselves was not always the easiest to use. Now, there has been technological improvements, right? Kids are more used to it because they've been doing it for a few years now, but we really want to hone in on this and give our kids opportunities to record themselves and listen to their own recordings so that when they submit speaking samples through TELPAS, it is an accurate measure of the spoken English they actually possess, right? Because too often what we find is that students get dinged for technological errors that are not genuinely reflective of what they can do and what they can say in English, all right? Okay, so TELPAS reporting, we know that, as I said, there's 4 domains. And in each of those domains, there's 4 proficiency levels: beginner, intermediate, advanced, and advanced high. And so what we're going to look at real quick, I'm going to give you about 4 minutes to read through the K through 12 ELPS and TELPAS proficiency level descriptors, okay? Before you do that, what I want you to notice is that these 5 dimensions include, so each bullet across, right, measures 1 dimension. The second bullet measures a separate dimension. So we have conversation and discussion, vocabulary usage, grammar and sentence structure, second language acquisition errors, and then lastly, pronunciation. And so what I want you to do as you look at those descriptors is I want you to notice what trends do you see as the descriptors move up in difficulty from beginning, intermediate, advanced, and advanced high. Okay, so what trends do you notice? And then what are some other things that you notice, or some things that are good reminders for you, or maybe some aha moments? Okay, so be identifying those trends for yourself. What commonalities are you seeing in terms of the increase in difficulty? Okay, and then just what are some things that you noticed for yourself that were either an aha or a good reminder of something you already knew? Is there any questions before I set you this task? All right, if you do have questions or need clarification, please drop that in the chat, or you can always unmute yourself. I'm going to start the 4 minutes. I'm going to let you read this. If you are done before the 4 minutes, go ahead and just put done in the chat, because everyone's done. We don't have to sit here painfully for an entire 4 minutes. All right, ready, set, go. We are about halfway there. We got 2 more minutes. So take your time, but please know that we will be done in less than 2 minutes. All right, I got 1 person done. If you want to come, all right, I got 2. Excellent. 3. All right. You guys are moving right along. I appreciate that. For those of you still going, take your time. Just know you have about 1 minute left. All right. That is the 4th. Thank you for letting me know. Okay, we are all through. So now, if you guys want to be nice and merciful to me, if anyone wants to turn their camera on, because it's a little disconcerting to just look at black screens with a name or just a profile picture. But who would be kind enough either to drop in the chat or unmute themselves and tell me, what did you notice about the progression of descriptors as they moved from lower to higher levels? And if you would rather type that, feel free. That is a little more time consuming than just saying it.
To me, there's not a lot of difference between advanced and advanced high.
That is definitely true, right? Even if you look at the very first bullet having to do with conversation, right? Able to participate comfortably in most conversations with some pauses or restatements, right? Similarly, the only difference in advanced high is extended conversation. And here it's more disruptions, hesitation, or pauses, right? So really, the difference, I think, you'll see a lot of times with an advanced student. At least I was in the bilingual classroom for 12 years, and then a reading coach and an assistant principal. Usually, my parents are immigrants, right? So like they're advanced high, but they still 40 years later, having been in the United States, they still make second language mistakes. They do, right? It just happens. So I think here with the advanced, in terms of ability and fluency, is usually more in the social, right, or conversational setting, and the advanced high is able to do this more effortlessly, even with academic or rigorous vocabulary and content. I think really that's what you see in a classroom setting is the biggest difference. All right, so thank you, Jana. Anyone else have an aha or something that stood out to you, or something that was a good reminder as you think about any English learners in your own classroom setting or at your own campus?
Yeah, I think one of the things that we tend to do, I certainly do, as I have taken some ESL courses in the past and am ESL certified now, so that's helped, is to confuse the idea of them being able to talk to their friends in the hallway and communicate effectively to academic language. That doesn't mean that their academic understanding in reading or writing or even speaking is on par to where it should be because you feel like they're comfortable speaking the everyday vernacular of their friends.
Right. All right, thank you. And Nate, you make a really good point, right? There is a big difference between BICS, basic interpersonal communication skills, and CALPS, right? The cognitive and academic language proficiency skills. And the reality is, I think we see this increasingly because of videos, because of social media, because of texting and tweeting and the shortened general attention span, right? That not just our English learners, all of our kids really are lacking in academic language, right? It really is academic rigorous language is almost like a second language to them, right? And so the skills that we're going to look at today really are beneficial for all kids because they help build a strong foundation of academic oracy, all right? So, and I don't want to, Pam said, it goes from beginner only using one or few words. By intermediate, it begins to have longer sentences. And I think by then some teachers think these students do not need assistance. And that is a very good point, Pam. A lot of times it's easy to say, oh, and like Nate said, oh, they got it, right? I'm good. I don't have time for this. I can skip it, right? But what we do is we kind of cut those kids off at the knees just when they're getting started. All right, well, thank you so much. Let's continue on, maybe. There we go. Okay, if you don't already have the LIAG is the Linguistic Instructional Alignment Guide. And basically, sorry, that timer was not supposed to start. Basically what it does is it mirrors the linguistic domains of TELPAS and the ELPS, right? It mirrors the proficiency levels, and it gives you concrete strategies that you can employ so that you are being very specific and very purposeful in planning out language acquisition activities that go along with and coincide with your instruction and allow for children to build oral fluency or fluency in whatever domain you're working on, okay? So I don't think I ever dropped the other one in the chat. That's my bad. Let me drop both of those in the chat so you can get the ELPS and the LIAG digitally. I'm gonna stop my share real quick and I'm gonna drop that in there for you. And I apologize I didn't do that before. Just a small oversight on my part. Okay. Here are the ELPS. We send it to everybody. And again, you don't, if you're like, oh no, the meeting ended and I didn't save it, what am I going to do? You're going to be totally fine because I'm going to send you this tomorrow and you'll have all of it then. Okay. So if you want to save it right now, put it in your Google Drive or on your hard drive or wherever you'd like, feel free. But if you don't, I will send it to you tomorrow. So no need to panic. So go ahead and open up the LIAG, which is the second bit.ly that I sent you. And we're going to look at pages 6 and 7. Okay. Pages 6 and 7. Let me share my screen one more time. And when you open it up, it's going to look like this. Okay. So we're looking right here only at pages 6 and 7, because as you can see, the previous pages deal with listening, right? Grades K through 12 listening. And then right below that, it moves on to the next modality, which is reading. Okay. Now, I just want you to take a couple of minutes. I'll put 2 minutes on the clock. What I want you to notice is this, because with TEKS, there's literally hundreds of standards, right? For every grade level, for every content area. But notice this is K through 12. And for speaking, there's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There's only 10 actual proficiency standards, okay? And so you don't have to look at, I mean, it's going to take you a little while to read all of those. But the nice thing is it gives you just a few simple, easy, select ways that you can design a lesson activity to meet these standards, okay? And you'll also notice it has very specific teacher behaviors that will help you to address every level of proficiency. So like Nate and others said, you're not just kind of getting them to the intermediate level and not pushing them beyond that, right? Or if you think about, okay, I'm going to pull some different small groups or make some small groups online, right? And I know based on the information I have, the level of my kiddos, well, now I can tailor this specific lesson for this specific small group to meet their actual needs, okay? So take about 3 minutes, look at pages 6 and 7, and just, actually we'll do 2 minutes because I wanna make sure I get you out of here on time. And this is still the introductory part. So take 2 minutes, I realize that's not very long, and just familiarize yourself with that. We won't do a debrief. I'll just let you absorb that information in the way you choose. Ready, set, go. Pages 6 and 7. If you have a profound revelation you want to share, you can drop it in the chat. I don't want to stifle your creativity or learning. You got 1 minute. 1 minute. I'll switch to here so you have something different to look at. "15 seconds. 15. All right, that is time. I realize that's not a lot of time, but again, the LIAG is just a really user-friendly, simple tool so that when you're planning any kind of activity, online, in person, hybrid, you have some kind of stock go-tos that help you to intentionally plan for language acquisition, okay? Jessica, I'm having a brain freeze. What do you mean by CCR? You don't mean Creedence Clearwater Revival, right?
No, on the page it says something about college career and readiness
Ah,
standards.
got you.
Yes.
Okay.
So I
I
was
got,
wondering when that was used and how that was used.
okay, let me go to the LIAG itself. Let me escape
Okay.
from here. And I will, okay, let me minimize this. Sorry, it does say college. Sorry. Okay. So the standards are designed to represent a full range of knowledge and skills that students need to, okay. So basically what this is it's just really because language acquisition happens over time, right? And they're trying to cover their bases as a continuum from elementary to middle to high school, right? And so they're looking at the key cognitive skills that we would want students to be able to develop in order to be college ready, right? And then looking at the foundational skills that make those possible, right? And so as we think about if we want them to have intellectual curiosity and be able to reason, right? Have good academic behavior such as study skills, turning in assignments on time, yada, 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 right? We want to make sure that we foster these, right? And give these foundational skills as we're doing the speaking activities and all of the other activities. Does that make sense? So basically, because this is such a wide range, I realize that that's not explained at all, right? But that's really what it is. This is the end goal, right? So here's things you can do. You just want to keep these in mind because you can't hit a target you don't aim for. That's all. Okay?
Perfect. Thank you.
I am perfect. If you could text my mother-in-law and let her know, that'd be great. Just kidding. Okay. So as we think about designing speaking activities, okay, what I really want to think about are what are some of the foundational building blocks that make those possible. Now, if you've been in a training with me before, if you were in the last one, I talked about sentence stems. Is it because I'm lazy and I can't come up with other stuff? Is that why I keep harping on it? No, it's not. I promise I'm not lazy, right? What it is that these are absolutely essential and these will give you the biggest bang for your buck, okay? So a lot of times we think of sentence stems in terms of writing, right? And they should be used with writing. But sentence stems can also be used to promote oracy, right? Especially if you think about you have an emerging speaker or writer, right? Whether it be an emerging speaker because they're 4 and they're in pre-K, or like Nate said, it's a student that's only been in the country for a few days or a year, right? And so they really need that support. And a sentence stem can be that lifeline for them, okay? So let's watch this, it's very brief.
Sentence stems are a part of the sentence that students can then build on to complete their thought or their sentence. So I may write the first 2 or 3 words of a sentence, and then students can fill those in with the remaining words. So it's a framework that the students can use. I like using them because it helps me incorporate writing into my class to where my students can access it, and it gets them started with a project. It gets everyone's head down, pen to paper, and kind of allows them to focus on what the prompt is. And they're really effective for the English language learners because a beginner student can add a couple words, they can complete a thought, and an intermediate, advanced student can finish that sentence and add another sentence. So often they're receiving information. If you get them writing, they're really thinking about what they're doing. So using a sentence stem really allows the ESL students to access that critical thinking. So it just kind of helps students get started and gives them a framework.
All right, so you have to believe that what she said is true and smart because she had a British accent, right? So anything they say, it sounds instantly more sophisticated. In fact, I might do the rest of the presentation like this. No, I'm just kidding. I will not do that. I could, right? But I won't. So like I said here, the beautiful thing about a sentence stem is it has built-in differentiation, right? Because it allows a student to respond to the ability that they're able to respond to, right? If they can only add a word or two, fantastic. Even if they're, you tell them, hey, I want you to try to use as much English as possible. And then the rest, go ahead and write it in your native language. You know what I'm saying? So then you're not stifling them. I used to do this all the time in the bilingual classroom, right? Listen, it's English time. I need you to use as much English, but I want to know what you're thinking. So if you need to throw in a bunch of Spanish, that's fine, because I need to see what you're thinking so that I know how to help you, right? Basically, if I'm giving you a formative assessment and you give me nothing, I can't help you because I don't know what you know or don't know, okay? Now, the other thing I will tell you, if you have a native speaker, right? You have just a kid that only speaks English, right? The beautiful thing about a sentence stem is you allow them to think first, have them write, and then they can share, right? Because a lot of times they're like, well, I don't know what to talk about, or they don't want to, they don't feel confident, right? But if they are allowed to write first, okay, it allows them to think, it allows them to parse kind of what they're doing, and then it allows them to share out and actually have some academic discourse. A lot of times with English language learners, I do it in reverse, right? Because they can't write what they can't say. If they can't say it, they certainly cannot write it, right? And so especially if you strategically pair them with somebody that's not way above them, but has maybe a little more English, right? They can listen to that person first. They can kind of hear some of that language. They can practice, and then they can put down their thoughts, okay? There we go. So as you think about a sentence stem, right? Here's what they should do. They should allow students to discuss the lesson objective and or essential question. You only have so many times kids can talk during a lesson, right? Because you have to do your direct teach, you got to do your modeling, they're going to do some partner work, and then they're going to work independently if you're doing the gradual release model, right? And so there's only so many times that you can stop and have them share because you know that that takes time, right? Now, if you're going to take the time to do that, you want to make sure they're talking about what is the main idea? What is it that I need them to know and to be able to talk about when this lesson is done, right? And so you want to very strategically choose and create sentence stems that always bring them back to the standard or to the essential question that you have mapped out, okay? You also want a sentence stem to include critical vocabulary from the lesson, right? You want to think about what words are essential in this particular objective, in this particular thematic idea, right? And how do I get them to think about that? And then you really want to have in mind, what language are you hoping they're going to produce? So think about the stem you've written, respond to it yourself, and ensure that they're actually going to be, now that I get it, some kids are just going to talk about whatever they want, right? Some kids are going to go off task, right? But assuming that most kids are going to do what you ask them to do, if you've, created a classroom with rules and procedures and all that good stuff, right? If they are trying to talk about the topic and having a hard time, it may be that the stem is not taking them where they need to go. All right. So now, here's what we're going to do. We're just going to go ahead. I'm not going to put you in breakout rooms because there's only 5 of you, and a couple of you are, one person's at the dentist and one's at the doctor's office. I'm just impressed that you're here at all. So if I was at the dentist suffering the indignity of them drilling into my mouth, I'd be like, I'm not talking about TELPS and ELPS. I'll see you next week. So good on you, okay? So I just want you to choose one of these stems down here. I can use sentence stems to promote oral English fluency in this particular upcoming lesson. So think about a lesson you're going to teach tomorrow. Think about a lesson you're going to teach later in the week, right? Ostensibly, you've done your lesson plans. You have some idea what you're going to teach this week, right? So let's say you have a lesson coming up and you're like, oh, I don't have any sentence stems. Or maybe you're a go-getter and a super high achiever and you have some. I don't know that you've already written them. Use one of those, okay? Now, the other thing, you have another sentence stem. The lesson objective is blank. So think about an upcoming objective you have. What is it that you want them to teach? I'm sorry. What is it you're going to teach that you want them to know? Forgive me. Therefore, a sentence stem I might use would be, all right, so I'm going to give you 2 minutes to answer those in writing, and I want you to, you just have to respond to one. So choose one of the two on the bottom, drop it in the chat, okay, and go ahead. I realize you don't have to rewrite it. You can copy and paste it. But I like to have them respond to the entire stem. If I know students have a hard time writing, especially if they're young, I'll provide the stem for them with the blank, but you want to get in the habit of having them restate it because this is the foundation of language. This teaches them how to have meaningful academic discourse, okay? So respond to one of the two stems at the bottom in the chat, and then I'm going to choose a lucky winner to share that out orally with the group. All right, 2 minutes. If you have any questions, let me know. On your marks, get set, go. One minute remaining. And again, you're not getting graded on this, so don't be nervous. We're learning together. All right. Jessica, you win the first post award of 86,000 points. You can redeem them at the Tarrant Health Authority. If you get enough, I hear they give you a COVID vaccine, even if you're not an essential healthcare worker. Just kidding. I like it. Jessica, what grade level are you?
I am in kindergarten.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that sounded like a K1 STEM. So
Yes.
I like it. And okay, so if you're by the way, you have 1 second. Sorry. So just finish up, no problem. Jessica, as they write, since you were you're already the go-getter, would you mind just sharing your STEM?
Sure. The lesson objective is to identify odd and even numbers. Therefore, a sentence stem I might use would be, there are blank odd numbers and blank even numbers on the number line.
Perfect. Now, let me ask you this. Not you specifically, everyone in general. Do you think that that's a relatively high level sentence stem for a kindergarten student? Does that require any thinking? Give me a thumbs up if you're like, yeah, absolutely. Or a side if you're like, I'm not sure. Or a thumbs down if you're like, no, Jessica's the worst and I want to tell her on Zoom. No, I'm just kidding. Don't do that. That's rude. No, it very much is, right? Because they have to look at the number line. They have to determine the odd numbers. They have to determine the even numbers, and they have to count them, right? So it's actually requiring an enormous amount of skills, right? So skill and difficulty is not necessarily about the content. It's about what is my grade level, what is my age level, and what am I asking them to do in terms of academic rigor, okay? And then, so thank you, Jessica, well done. Jana said, the lesson objective is finding main idea. Therefore, a sentence I might use would be, this story was mainly told to me about perfect, right? And so that little open-ended area they can put a little, they can put a lot, right? Just depends on their ability and their desire, okay? And Nate said, in the Shakespeare play Macbeth, so Nate, I take it you're teaching high school? I don't think you're reading Macbeth in middle school, right?
Sorry, yes, I'm teaching 9th grade English, yes.
Macbeth is a very strong general in the king's army. However, he is also a very ambitious leader who would love to please the king and move up. When Macbeth thinks he is moving from healthy ambition to unhealthy ambition, it feels like there's more coming, Nate. Is there more coming?
No, that's the idea. So when
Oh, got you. I'm sorry.
When does Macbeth's ambition move from healthy to wanting to please the king and do well for the army and receive promotions to unhealthy? That's the theme for tomorrow.
Got you. So basically, when is his ambition moving from healthy to unhealthy, blank, and they would respond. I love it. Okay, sorry, I misunderstood. That's on me, not on you. All right. Well, clearly you guys see this process is not difficult, right? If you were able to come up with something in 2 minutes, if you gave it a little more thought, everything you come up with was really good. Think how much better it would be with a little more planning and forethought. Okay. I got to speed it up because I realize it's already 4:40. So let's look at really quick couple of planned interactions, and then we're going to talk about it. These are both very brief.
Turn and Talk is an oral language strategy that students can use to express themselves. In pre-K, what we try to do with Turn and Talk is to really get them to think and to be able to learn to speak to a partner. They sit knee to knee, so that allows them to really look and see eye to eye when they're speaking and really helps them learn to focus. Él va a hablar primero y después yo voy a estar escuchando. Cuando termine de hablar Bene, vamos a tomar un turno. Yo voy a hablar, siéntese bien Josiah, y después Bene va a estar escuchando. I love using this strategy because it also lets me go around and see what they're saying and if they're talking, because sometimes they feel more comfortable speaking to their friend than they do to me. And sometimes when I just ask a question one-on-one, they don't respond to me. But when I hear them talking to their partner, then I know they've understood the concept. They know what I'm talking about. They're getting what we're reading and they're understanding that. It helps them internalize the procedure, but it also helps things run smoother because it gives us more time to focus on the lesson and less time on teaching them that strategy every so often. Using the strategy on a constant basis and setting those expectations of what's expected is really essential to helping the kids be able to master it.
All right. How many of you have already done Turn and Talk? You're good. I've used it a bunch of times. Anyone? Bueller?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. So, and what I really just want to point out there, what I really love that she did, and I don't know if you noticed this, but she's like, okay, so I'm going to talk to him, then we're going to take turns, then he's going to talk, and I'm going to listen, right? Now, clearly she has little kids, right? They're bilingual, but again, full body response, right? You're going to look at me, and then I'm going to call on you. You're going to share with each other, right? Partner A is going to go first. Who's partner A? Show me good. A goes first. Who goes second? The thing is, adding those small little total physical response elements make an enormous difference. I also love that lady because she's getting filmed, right? She's going to be on the internet and she's giving the instructions. And there's Josiah not paying attention, acting up, right? But she was real, okay, Josiah, sit down nicely or I'm going to kill you, right? And she just kept on moving. And I love that lady's my hero. I love it, right? We've all had Josiah. Sometimes we've had multiple Josiahs, right? Okay, so let's look at one more. Okay, and you may have done inside-outside circles. So the last one was an elementary context. This is going to be a secondary context. This can still work. I've seen this work in elementary. It just would require a lot of practice and very specific instructions.
Inside-outside circle is something that I use to get the students talking again. Since I'm a French teacher, they have to talk a lot. So the way it works is that I give them a questionnaire. So this is a variation of inside-outside circle. I have them turn the desk to face each other, and they have to just move from one desk to the other. And it's kind of like speed dating, where they're asking each other questions and they have to take notes of what the other students said. And then after they've gone through the 4, 5, or 6 questions that I have, they just stand up and switch desks so that they have someone else in front of them for the next round. I like inside-outside circle because they can repeat the same thing 4 or 5 times, but because they are with different students each time, it's not as boring. And so it's something that I usually do maybe a few days after I introduce the vocabulary, so that it's not too fresh yet, because otherwise it wouldn't work as well.
All right. So here's what I will tell you. During a planned interaction, okay, whether it be inside-outside circle, whether it be turn and talk, okay, you need to assign partners or organize the interaction. Kids need to know who they're talking to, and who goes first, who goes second, who goes third, right? Because you could also do like a small group, something like that. You could assign roles to people, right? You're going to talk, you're going to say, we're going to do this graphic organizer. So you're number 1, you're number 2, right? You just need to have some way for it to be organized, okay? Again, a talk order, there needs to be a timer. Do you notice I give you a timer and I just let you know, hey, okay, you got a minute. Hey, you got 30 seconds. You know why? Because it creates urgency, right? It makes me think, oh crap, this guy's going to call on me. And if I have nothing, I'm going to look bad and I'm going to be embarrassed in front of a group of people, right? Negative peer pressure is bad. Positive peer pressure is good, okay? You need to have a talk stem, right? We started with sentence stems because if I'm going to have you talk, I need you to talk purposely about what I want you to talk about because I'm the teacher and I'm your boss and you do what I say, right? And again, most of the time the kids will give into peer pressure. Well, if everyone else said it, now there's always Josiah who's not going to, right? All right, and you need to have some kind of signal to come back. Now with you guys, I just say, okay, bring it in and whatever, right? But with little kids, whether you do 1, 2, 3, eyes on me, 1, 2, eyes on you, right? Or all right, where everybody, we're back. I need you quiet in your seats in 3, 2, 1. All right, so whatever you do, make sure you have it, okay? So don't be mad at me, but we're not gonna finish on time because somebody, it definitely wasn't me, but somebody paced this not very well. I'm pretty sure it was you guys. I'm gonna blame you because it couldn't have been me, right? So no, it was me, I apologize. All right, last thing. Have any of you ever heard of the teach back? Anyone? The teach back? Okay. This is really simple, but really powerful, okay? So what happens when you want a kid to speak or you want a kid to write? What do you do with, I don't know, right? Like, I don't know. I don't know what to say. I don't know what to write. I don't know what to do, right? And then the student just assumes that's a license for them to sit there and do nothing, okay? Or what if you have an English learner and you really want to help them use a complete sentence, but they just can't? Not because of lack of desire, because they just can't. They're doing the best they can, okay? Well, what I will tell you is complete sentences are your best friend, okay? So I want you to watch this teacher and I want you to notice, what does the teacher do to make it possible for students to respond at a high academic level and align it to the lesson objective, okay? How does the teacher do that? And then we're going to look at, well, what happens when I can't do that? Okay. All right, here we go.
This book, I use these sentence starters to help me think of a connection in my mind. The part when Alexander goes to the dentist and has a cavity reminds me of the time when I went to the dentist and I had a cavity. I felt so worried and scared. This helps me understand the story better because now I know that Alexander must be just as worried and scared as I was. Can any of you think of a connection that you made from the book that I just read to you? And
The part when Alexander tripped on his skateboard reminds me of when I fell down the stairs. I felt really hurt. This helps me understand the story better because I think Alexander feels hurt.
Okay, and bada bing, bada boom, there you go. Let me escape one more time. Nope. There we go. Okay, so what did the teacher do? What'd you notice? Go ahead and unmute yourself and just send it out there.
She provided, she modeled talking points for them. She modeled it for them first and then helped them become comfortable and start thinking about it. Then they were able to use what she modeled and connect it to their own experience.
So there was modeling, right? Basically, it was like a think aloud. Basically, she showed them what the process looked like. Perfect. Anyone else notice anything?
I think the modeling, she put her, she left the sentences on the board so they could go back and see them so they wouldn't forget, and it made it a little more fluent for them to be able to talk through whatever it was they were thinking about saying.
Perfect. So she had an anchor chart, right? And she had those stems there. Perfecto, right? Anyone else? Okay. So now here's the thing. Clearly, Anam has got it going on, right? Like, she knew she was being filmed, so she's like, I'm going to call him the smart kid, right? And I won't blame her. I would have done the same thing, right? You don't want to call on your child who you know is going to struggle. One, it makes you look bad, but worse, it makes the child look bad, right? So what happens when you've modeled and you've done it and they've done it with a partner, and then you get there and they're like, oh, what you do is the teach back, okay? Now, you'll notice this is based on the work of Darren DeWalt, who is a medical doctor. You know who taught me the teach back? My wife, who is a nurse, right? They do this in the medical field. So when they're going to discharge a patient and the patient needs to go home and care for themselves, right? But they got to take medicine, or they've got to take care of their wound, or they've got to do something to keep up with their care, right? So that they're not back in the hospital. Here's what they do. They tell them what to do. They ask them to repeat it back, right? Then they listen and they verify, did the patient understand? Now, let's say they understood most of it, right? But they were missing something. Okay, then we go back, we tell them the part they're missing, we ask them to repeat it, we listen again, and if they're like, you got it, you move on with your life, okay? Now, you're not gonna ask a child 15 times, right? Because that's like, okay, well, you almost said it right, but one word was wrong, so let's try it for the 15. No, you do it once, twice, maximum 3, and then get out of there and praise what you got, okay? Now, let's try this. I need someone to be a pal. We're gonna pretend that I taught you a lesson on the difference between complete and incomplete metamorphosis, because if I ask you to repeat something that you know, you're not gonna get it wrong because you know it because you're an adult, right? So I need somebody that's brave, I'm setting you up for at least partial failure unless you just know a lot about entomology. So anybody wanna help me out?
I can do it.
Okay, Nate, you're the best. So Nate, as you know, we've been talking about the difference in life cycles, right? And we've gone over complete and incomplete metamorphosis. Based on the diagrams and the sentence stems we've used, can you tell me what is the difference between complete and incomplete metamorphosis?
One the incomplete has not fully metamorphosized.
Okay.
And the other has.
Fantastic. And if you remember, right, here for complete, we go from the egg to the larva to the pupa, and then it emerges as an adult, right? But the difference, we have an egg, we have a larva, but it never becomes a pupa because the pupal stage is missing. As you said, the metamorphosizing is not present. So can you do me a favor? Can you tell me what you just told me, but can you use the life cycle names that I just used, please?
So it hasn't gone from an egg to a pupa?
That's exactly right. The one that's missing is the pupa. Fantastic. Right. Did he say exactly what I said? No. Did he use the academic vocabulary? Yes. Now, the other thing you can do, let's say Nate is Josiah, right? And I was like, Nate, can you tell me? He's like, no, I don't know. right? Well, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to call on Anam, right? So I'm going to say, hey, Anam, can you help Nate? Can you tell him, right? And I'm going to let Anam answer. Then I'm going to go back to Nate and be like, hey, Nate, can you tell me what Anam just said? And then he's not going to repeat it word for word, right? He's going to repeat it in his own words. So what I've done is I've leveraged one of my high-level students that I know can do it and wants to talk, right? And I put some positive peer pressure on Nate, not to make him look bad, but to step up and give him a chance to be successful. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
So,
but like if you were teaching a first grade class, that somebody's going to say, instead of pupa, they're going to say poopy. They're going to say it.
that's true. And you laugh, right? And you're like, you know, they really do sound like each other, don't they? But, and it's true that the pupa makes poopy, but they are different. And so you embrace the joke and you move on. It's kind of like if you're watching a movie called Ant-Man.
Yeah.
You just make fun of that right at the beginning. Be like, really? Your name's Ant-Man? It's because you know the audience is thinking it. So you just get past it together and then you can move on with your life.
Yeah.
See? You embrace the absurdity before they can. That's how you win. All right. We're almost done. No, we don't have time for that. Sorry, guys. All right. I'm going to drop this in the chat. I need you to just do a quick impact measure for me because it helps me know what you learned and my bosses also require it. So what we're going to do, I'm going to drop this in the chat. Maybe no, because I have to stop my share. Sorry about that. So let me open this. So this is a Google form. It's just 3 questions, but I need you please, because I track this data, to put the date, the session number, and the title of the session in the form, but you can just copy and paste them from the chat. So go to the chat, open up the link, and I'm going to show you what it looks like as well. If you've been in a session with me, so literally the form's just going to look like this. You put the date, the ID number, the title, and then there's 3 quick questions. All right. Most folks finish it in about 2 minutes. So 2 minutes, go. And when you're done, if you'll just put done in the chat so I know, that'd be great. Thank you, Jessica. Jessica is determined to beat you guys. She's a fierce competitor. Nate, he put dumb. My form isn't dumb. Well, maybe a little. See, Nate brought it full circle. He brought back the poopy and the pupa right there. I liked it. That was good.
I have got to be the class clown at some point. So
listen, better you than me. If you're telling inappropriate jokes and I'm not, I get better evaluations at the end. So thank you, Shannon. This has been a small group, but you guys have been super fun. I appreciate that. It makes it much better when we have some interaction. And all right, Jana's good. All right, if you're still working, take your time, but I do want to get you out of here on time, and it is 4:57. So all that I need you to know is I have a monthly bilingual professional learning s'more. You may be thinking, I don't teach bilingual. That's okay, because the strategies, again, are good for all students. So if you would like to receive that, you can subscribe. I don't get anything by you subscribing. Every month I put out a strategy and a digital tool to make it useful in virtual and in person, okay? We also have the English Learner Professional Learning s'more put out by my partner and colleague, Melanie Yoakum. So you have that available to you. There's also an English Learner Parent Support s'more with stuff that you can send directly to families. and it is both in English and in Spanish. And then with Google Translate, they can put it in whatever language they like. I realize that there's more than just Spanish speakers in Texas. Okay, here's my upcoming sessions, and here's how you can be in contact with us. I'm going to send all of this to you tomorrow, so you are good to go. Thank you so much for being here. I will stick around for a few minutes if you have any questions or anything. If not, just hit leave meeting at the bottom and enjoy the rest of your week. Thank you so much for being here. I am going to stop the recording.